Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're exploring a really fascinating molecule in the world of hair loss treatments. Everyone's looking for that magic bullet, great results, zero side effects.
Always the goal, isn't it?
Exactly. And this molecule, Fluridil, or Topilutamide, well, it seemed like it might be just that incredibly clever design.
It really was. Sounds almost perfect on paper.
But then you ask, why isn't it, everywhere? Why isn't it a standard prescription? That's the puzzle.
And that's what we're diving into today. We'll look at the science behind Fluridil, this whole safety by design idea, which is, frankly, brilliant.
Really is.
But then we'll pivot and try to understand why, despite that brilliance, it isn't really broken through in treating AGA, androgenetic alopecia.
Right. We're trying to connect the lab bench to the bathroom cabinet, so to speak.
Or why I didn't make that leap, yeah.
So for anyone dealing with hair loss, looking for topical options is huge, right? Because nobody wants the systemic side effects from pills if they can avoid them.
Absolutely. That's the driving force.
Can you just quickly sketch out what Fluridil was designed to combat, like right there in the hair follicle?
Sure. So with AGA, the main villain is DHT, dihydrotestosterone. It binds to androgen receptors in your hair follicles. And that binding kicks off this miniaturization process. Hairs get thinner, shorter, eventually might stop growing altogether.
The classic pattern hair loss process.
Exactly. Now, oral meds like finasteride, they work by lowering DHT levels everywhere in the body. Effective, yes.
But that's where the systemic side effects can creep in. Sexual side effects being the most discussed one for men.
Precisely. So there was this big need for something that worked only on the scalp, locally.
And that's Fluridil's entrance cue, with this totally different strategy.
Totally different. It's built on this safety by design concept. First off, it's super hydrophobic.
Meaning it hates water, loves oil.
Right. So when you put it on your scalp, it dissolves into the sebum, the natural oil, and that helps deliver it straight down into the follicle near those receptors.
Like a targeted delivery system using the skin's own oils.
Kind of, yeah. It sticks where it's supposed to.
Okay, so targeted delivery, check. But what if, just hypothetically, a little bit gets absorbed anyway, gets into the bloodstream? That's the worry, right? Systemic effects.
But that's the second part of the genius design. Fluridil is engineered as a soft drug.
Soft drug, meaning?
Meaning it has a built-in self-destruct mechanism. There's a specific chemical bond in the molecule that's deliberately unstable in water.
Okay.
So if any Fluridil does make it into the aqueous environment of your bloodstream, water immediately attacks that bond. It hydrolyzes.
Like dissolving.
Exactly like dissolving, but it breaks the molecule down into bits that are completely inactive, harmless fragments.
Wow. So it literally falls apart if it gets into the wrong place.
Pretty much. It can't circulate and cause trouble systemically. The studies showed they couldn't even detect it or its main breakdown product in people's blood, even using sensitive tests.
That is remarkably clever, solving the side effect problem before it can even start.
It really is elegant chemistry.
And in the lab, it wasn't just blocking receptors, was it? The data suggested it was actually like turning down the production of the receptors themselves by 95% in cell cultures.
That's what some in vitro data suggested, yes. A profound effect if it translates in vivo. It's like telling the cell to stop even listening for the DHT signal.
Which sounds incredibly powerful. So, given this amazing design, the lab potency, what went wrong? Why isn't it a blockbuster drug?
Right. This is where we hit the hurdle. Clinical validation, the actual proof it works well in lots of real people. The main study in men, it's from back in the early 2000s, only 43 guys.
Small sample size.
Very. And it showed an increase in the percentage of hairs in the anagen, the growing phase. Went from about 76% to 85% after 3 months.
Okay, that sounds positive. More hairs growing.
It's a positive biological signal, yeah. But crucially, they didn't measure what we now consider the gold standard, actual hair count changes.
They didn't count the hairs.
No. So you don't know if that shift in cycle phases actually led to visibly more hair on the head. And that's, what people actually want to see.
Right. You want more hair, not just better behaved follicles on a chart. What about for women? Any better there?
Even less data, unfortunately. There was one tiny pilot study, just 11 women, open label, so no placebo group for comparison. It hinted maybe existing hairs got a bit thicker, but no significant change in that anagen-telogen ratio, the growth versus resting phase balance, like they saw in men.
So very preliminary for women, too. Hard to draw strong conclusions.
Extremely difficult. So you have this fantastic safety profile based on the design and early tests.
And you're perfect, it sounds like.
But the efficacy evidence, judged by today's standards for drug approval, it's just not robust. It's thin.
It really drives home how high that bar is for clinical proof, doesn't it? Such a cool idea, but it stumbled on the evidence front.
It did, which explains its current status.
So let's summarize this. Where does Fluridil actually sit now?
Okay, pulling it all together. Fluridil represents this amazing piece of rational drug design, that hydrolytic instability, giving it that near-perfect safety because it basically self-destructs if it gets systemic. That's a huge win on the safety side.
Huge.
But the clinical proof that it actually grows significant amounts of hair, especially compared to other treatments, is based on small, older studies lacking that key hair count data.
Right, the kind of data regulators like the FDA demand.
Exactly, which lands Fluridil in this kind of odd spot. Maximum safety, theoretically.
But unproven efficacy by modern pharma standards.
Precisely. And that's why, in Europe, it's generally sold as a cosmetic, not a medicine. And in places like the US and Canada, it's not an approved drug at all. It just hasn't met that high evidence threshold for efficacy.
It never got through that rigorous drug approval process.
Correct.
So this whole deep dive really leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty interesting question, I think.
It really crystallizes a core dilemma in treating chronic conditions like hair loss.
Yeah. What do you value more? Is it the guarantee of minimal, almost zero side effects? Or is it the rigorously proven, robust evidence that something definitely works, even if it carries some risk?
Fluridil's story puts that choice into sharp focus, doesn't it? It highlights that tension between brilliant scientific innovation on one hand and the cold, hard requirement for extensive clinical validation on the other. Something to really think about.